In the penultimate episode of Star Trek Picard's first season, Lassie Renner finally reaches its destination. Soji learns the truth of her origins, and Picard sees an unexpected familiar face. Here are all the Easter eggs and references you might have missed in Arcadia Ego Part 1. When Lassie Renner finally arrives at Soji's homeworld, Soji reveals that the planet's synthetic inhabitants call it Coppelius. This is almost assuredly a reference to the 19th century ballet Coppelia, in which a young man falls in love with a life-size doll. In the ballet, the doll's inventor, Dr. Coppelius, plans to sacrifice the young man in order to bring his creation to life. However, the young man's fiancée manages to save him by dressing up as the doll and using Coppelius's other creations as a distraction so that the young couple can escape. The first part of the plot sounds eerily similar to what Picard and his crew encounter on the planet Coppelius, where Dr. Alton Inigo Soong is willing to sacrifice the lives of all organics in order to ensure the continued existence of its sentient synthetic creations. Shortly after Lassie Renner first arrives at Coppelius, Narek's ship also emerges from the transwarp conduit and immediately begins to attack. After trading shots back and forth, Narek's ship suddenly seems to be experiencing some sort of technical malfunction, with its cloaking device glitching out and Narek's life signs quickly fading. Picard orders Narek beamed aboard Lassie Renner, but it turns out it was all just a distraction. The ship they were seeing was actually a projection of Narek's cloaking device. Really, his ship was behind Lassie Renner, and he exploited their attempt at mercy to attack them again. While the mechanics are different, Narek's strategy is extremely reminiscent of the Picard maneuver, a battle tactic Picard invented while commanding the Stargazer that created the illusion of a second ship.
And blowing into maximum warp speed, you appeared for an instant to be in two places at once.
And our attacker fired on the wrong one.
Although Narek used his cloaking device to create that illusion, both tactics involved confusing the opposing ship's sensors and tricking them into firing on the illusion instead of the real ship. After Lassie Renner crash lands on the surface of Coppelius, the ship seems largely undamaged, except that none of the ship's automated systems are up and running. This presents a problem for Agnes Jurati, who is tasked with figuring out what's wrong with Picard after the Admiral starts speaking nonsensically on the bridge. Although the medical scanners aren't working, Agnes lucks out when she finds an old medkit.
I didn't know how I was going to run a scan on you. And then I found this, an old school medical tricorder.
Of course, medical tricorders are familiar to anyone who has watched previous iterations of Star Trek, but the most significant person from Picard's past to use a medical tricorder was Dr. Beverly Crusher, the chief medical officer on board the Enterprise. Dr. Crusher was also Picard's closest friend and, in one version of the future, his wife, although they later got divorced. When the Lassie Renner crew ventures out onto the surface of Coppelius, Raffi attributes her nerves to the possibility of encountering angry reptiloids or homicidal fungi. Neither of these is outside the realm of possibilities on Star Trek. In the original series, the most notable encounter with an angry reptiloid occurred in the episode Arena, in which Captain Kirk is told he must fight to the death with the captain of a gaunt ship. As for homicidal fungi, while no Star Trek crew has yet had a run-in with murderous mushrooms, in the original series episode The Conscience of the King, the crew of the Enterprise encounters a former governor of a colony responsible for massacring 4,000 of his colonists after an aggressive strain of exotic fungi wiped out most of their food stores. The governor's justification for his homicidal actions was that he was trying to ensure that at least some of his people would live, even if it meant sacrificing many of them. This is not too far off from the logic presented by Sutra in Arcadia Ego Part 1, in which she argues that wiping out all organic life in the universe is a worthwhile trade-off if it ensures that the synthetic race will live on. After arriving on Coppelius, the long-range sensors on the crashed Borg cube confirm that a fleet of Romulan warbirds is indeed on its way to the planet, and will arrive uncomfortably soon. Raffi tells Rios that in total, there are 218 warbirds approaching, although Raffi jokes that they really only have to worry about the first 109. While it's always hard to say for sure whether numbers like these are supposed to be a reference to anything at all, 218 could be a nod to the 5th season Next Generation episode Cause and Effect, which was given production code 218. In the episode, the Enterprise gets caught in a time loop, and only manages to escape once Data figures out a way to send a message to himself through time, giving him the information he needs to break the loop. In Arcadia Ego Part 1, Sutra realizes that the admonition is a message being sent from an ancient race of synthetics to the synthetic life forms of the future. Keeping with the idea of production codes, the Next Generation episode Justice was given the code 109, and sees Picard facing off against a powerful and highly advanced being who who watches over a race of less advanced people. In Justice, Picard opposes the death sentence given to an innocent member of his crew, arguing that there is nothing just about such an extreme unilateral punishment that doesn't take individual circumstances into account. A similar argument to the one we see him attempt to make at the end of Arcadia Ego Part 1. When Picard and the crew of La Sirena arrive in Coppelius Station, we get a brief glimpse of two synthetics playing a game that looks very similar to the 3D chess that has been seen on several other versions of Star Trek. One episode of The Next Generation in which 3D chess played a prominent role was in a third season episode in which Will Riker uses his captor's game to maneuver his way out of his cell after he and Deanna Troi are taken hostage. Picard would likely have to employ similar levels of cunning and strategic thinking in order to escape the circumstances he finds himself in at the end of Arcadia Ego Part 1. When the golden-skinned synthetic Sutra is introduced, Dr. Soong mentions that she is extremely interested in Vulcan culture, saying that she has read Surak and plays the Carthera beautifully, and has even taught herself to perform a Vulcan mind meld. Surak was a revered Vulcan philosopher who helped shape Vulcan culture with his teachings on peace and logic. Meanwhile, Carthera was a form of Vulcan lute.
It is a 5-stringed instrument, tuned on a diatonic scale. It can be very soothing.
Several characters have played the Carthera in past iterations of Star Trek, including Spock and Uhura on the original series, and Tuvok on Voyager. One of the cuddliest recurring characters on The Next Generation was Data's ginger house cat, Spot, who appeared in numerous episodes. Caring for Spot and bonding with the cat was a pivotal part of Data's ongoing quest to become more human.
And you must talk to him. Tell him he is a pretty cat, and a good cat.
In Arcadia Ego Part 1, Agnes is seen cuddling a remarkably familiar ginger house cat, whom she confirms is even named Spot too. But don't get too excited about Spot's family tree continuing on through 2399. This version of Spot is actually a synthetic, created by Soong and seemingly modeled after the original Spot. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about Star Trek are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the bell so you don't miss a single one.